Perfect. Well, I make it 3 minutes past. I think we kick off if that's all right, Shreeji.
Yeah. Do you want to start off with your introduction, mate?
Yeah, of course. So, what's next for DORA in 2026 is the title of this presentation, or is kind of webinar. We'd have thought by now that everything would have been sorted, right? With when it comes to DORA, we've been talking about it lots. Clients have been talking about it lots. Regulators have been talking about it lots. But we thought we'd use this opportunity to feedback as to what we've seen and share some of the learnings around kind of practices, challenges, and kind of feedback into the community, really, I guess. So I'm on the right-hand side there. I'm a director in the cyber risk practice here at Thomas Murray. I've been here for about 2 years. Prior to that, I spent another couple of years at Kroll, and then before that, PwC. I'm joined on the call on the webinar by Shreeji.
Thank you so much, Ed. As Ed mentioned, our objective for this is to share what we've heard and also get more insights during this webinar. I am Shreeji Doshi. If you follow Thomas Murray's page, I've possibly been on all the DORA webinars. I, like Ed, I'm also the director within the cyber risk practice. Worked at Kroll, prior to that at EY for 11 odd years, based out of Belgium. And looking forward to this session, to be honest. A bit about Thomas Murray. I think that there are a lot of people who are new to this series or this session who don't have the background. If you could give a 30-second pitch on Thomas Murray.
Yeah, of course. So Thomas Murray is one of the best kept secrets within the risk and cybersecurity space. So we've been around for about 30 years. We advise global banks and investors. So kind of across, global being a really key term there. That's our traditional kind of area of operation within a financial services sector. Hence our focus on an interest in DORA. Clients coming to us saying, what's going on. As you said, we're globally focused. We've got about 120 individuals across the organization. Big focus in, or a lot of account in the UK, but also European kind of representation from the likes of Shreeji, as he said, is operating out of Belgium, and also kind of further afield. So we provide clients on a global basis, providing risk intelligence and cybersecurity services, including DORA. The creds on the left-hand side there are basically what the practice is kind of recognised for doing. So lots of instant response stuff, but as well as our kind of technical capabilities from a pen testing perspective.
Brilliant. For people who have been on this series before, I think we like to really understand who's joining us and what sort of businesses they are part of. I think the first poll will be with you. Do we want to understand what sort of subsector within the financial service industries are you participating from? And if you are not one of them, you are one of the third parties or anyone who's just more interested in DORA, please do share the same. So the polls will come up to select the most appropriate subsectors.
Good stuff. And there is an option to vote anonymously if you would rather that. But always really interesting to understand who's attended these. As you are probably well aware, DORA impacting lots of different organizations. Very, very interesting to hear kind of who's attending.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of credit institutions, a lot of banks and payment institution, and I think a lot not from non-financial service, which I'm assuming is also linked to third parties supporting those financial services, which is fairly interesting. We do have representation from EMIs, CSDs, trading platforms. Very, very great. Super. I think we can close off on that poll. Really, really interesting. And again, there would be more polls. Please do not hesitate. Do participate in the polls. We really like to keep this interactive. So the more interactive you make it, the more insightful we can bring in. And also, if you have questions, like I said before, to feel free to pop them in the chat. Now, again, one of our classics, or always it goes there. This is a word cloud. What is the word cloud of? What do you think is the word cloud of?
I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of this. This is I guess we'll spoil it and when we let people kind of fill in which is the most relevant section for them. But this kind of represents DORA. This is the DORA text. What have we got? We've got a big focus on ICT, big focus on financial. Really insightful from my perspective as somebody that is a kind of visual learner. So I think DORA introduces a number of complexities that we'll go into kind of later on. But I think as you see on the right-hand side here, big focus on third party, big focus on ICT risk, regulation as Anonymous is shouting it, absolutely. And it's complex and it's kind of spanning the kind of additional scope for kind of entities that aren't typically kind of regulated in this space. And by virtue of that, I mean kind of the third party space. So yeah, really, really good. And it looks largely like we're aligned. It's the ICT, it's a third party components that are kind of most relevant for individuals in this call.
Yeah. Brilliant. So I think it's like I said, it's reflective of what DORA as a regulation is wanting to do is for organizations to be more resilient. Financial services and third parties is a very integral part of it, and so is risk and risk management. So that's great. Moving forward now, let's dive into the content part of it. And quickly, you want to walk us through what we'll be talking about?
Yeah, of course. So we mentioned this at the beginning, but essentially what we'll be covering, what we've learned from 2020, 2025, we never miss an opportunity to learn, and some of the key kind of take homes that we've seen. So as I said, we operate kind of across the globe, but increasingly more so across kind of different European jurisdictions that are kind of captured by the scope of DORA. So we're seeing this from a number of different areas, and we want to kind of feed back into that. An area of particular difficulty that we've seen is the ROI and the ICT risk management framework component. So yeah, again, just feeding back to what it is that we're seeing. The regulatory kind of outlook, so projecting forwards and trying to, I guess, look at our crystal ball and try and work out what the priority is going to be kind of going forwards. And then the takeaways, essentially. So what is it that you should be doing? The now what component of the webinar. So yeah, hopefully we'll be kind of ticking off a lot of kind of topics that you guys are interested in. And I guess what we've got next, if you flick on Shreeji, there should be something else that appears, which is what we understand your reasons to be watching. So yeah, learn about DORA compliance. Please ask questions. This is a really good opportunity to share within the group, within the community, pick our brains. Shreeji has downplayed his level of expertise when it comes to DORA. Mr. DORA, as far as we're concerned here at Thomas Murray and across our client base. We will be issuing the DORA checklist as well for your third parties. So big tick on that front in terms of the focus that a lot of people attending have got on their third parties. And give you an opportunity to, as I said, pick the brains of the individuals that we've got on this call. Shreeji, anything else you want to add there?
No, just thank you so much for cracking the first joke of me being Mr. DORA. I'm keeping tabs.
Right.
All right. So what we can learn from 2025, I think we want to start off with a couple of industry surveys from last year, exactly a year ago, just to kind of see on how the regulators are viewing these challenges. And so we touch up on couple of surveys by Deloitte and PwC, and this is from March. And one of the key things that comes out of this survey was what were the implementation challenges, and as you would imagine, it was a time when ROI was due to be submitted, so ROI was massively interesting. what what kind of strikes me then is the segregation and segmentation of ICT systems that was pretty much high in the radar of 12%. In my head, this is significant purely because at that point in time, organizations were dealing with a lot of other priorities, and entities were also worried about whether they have segregated and segmented the IT systems properly. The other tools are fairly reflective of what we know about. I think the key takeaway from this slide is 1 year ago, ROI was a major challenge. We'll then see whether it's still a major challenge, and all the other ones, is it reflective in what we've heard so far from various regulators. The next one is a PwC Luxembourg survey on uh, again in June, so 3 months down the line. And if you look, resiliency testing comes up again in the top three. You have mapping of critical functions with information assets and ICT assets. I think that stems from the first DORA submission, because once you do that, you realize it's not an easy task to get it right, and then you do the ROI submission, and then you have a way to update it going forward. Uh, y- you also see, contract negotiation as being massively uh, difficult at that point in time, because that was the time when addendums were starting going out, starting those conversations. In this, you do not see aspects around third party assessments, which was in the case of Deloitte. So more or less, if we look at it, it looks not reflective of the same sort of challenges 3 months apart. There are a few overlaps, but a lot of non-overlapping fields. Uh, which is possibly understandable. Maybe the sample size is different, but very interesting to see these challenges. Ed, any passing thoughts before we jump onto the?
Yeah, I guess the big one for me is that June 2025, we're looking at the challenges associated with the implementation of the regulation within the business context. So you're looking at kind of granular issues or granular challenges with regards to mapping of critical functions. Like this is kind of absolutely central to DORA, and it's the Venn diagram where the technical meet the business, and it's classic, right? It's that how do we meet the obligations that that are put to us as a business. Business context is always going to be key, and it's the nuances of implementation I think are reflected on this.
Super. There is already a question on roles and responsibilities. I think we'll look to capture that, Mikhailo, as soon as we are done with the entire presentation, because we currently don't have it in the content slides, but we take a good note of it, and we'll come back to you on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and we'll put some time aside to go over it.
Yeah, indeed. Just jumping on from June 2025 to, if I'm not mistaken, this was issued out December 2025. So 6 months on, and BaFin has conducted or generated one of fairly decent report on its findings of DORA, and I think it's very representative of what we've heard from other regulators when attending conferences and when sitting on panels with them. Their feedback that we've heard, I think, is very representative, and hence I think BaFin has done a great job of putting it out for everyone to consume and learn and improve their DORA compliance. The first one is on governance, and this is something that we look to cover also in our ICT framework review and report, where there are unclear strategies, non-measurable objectives, and insufficient involvement of the management bodies. Now, I think in a lot of cases where I have where we've spoken to clients, I think the fundamental questions that we get on the digital operational resilience strategy is is that strategy something that we could make or have it implemented practically, or is it a document that we are writing for compliance? And a great way to look at that question is the second part of the challenge that Buffin has identified is non-measurable objectives. I think the way to make the strategy more livable is setting out measurable objectives, and that drives the strategy and keep it continuous going. I think that is where what we recommend is have an ongoing set of KPIs, KRIs, both from not just from a compliance point of view, so from compliance, but also from a resilience point of view and a risk point of view. So if you have those clear sets of the resilience requirements that you put as either KPIs or KRIs, depending on how we are looking at it, and then add a layer on the overall compliance level, you would be able to draw up the strategy in a way and then follow it up on a regular basis, which I think has helped some of our clients where we work on defining such a way of handling the strategy. On the insufficient involvement of the management body, I think that's uh, it's a fair observation. And again, it goes back to the culture of the organization, uh, and how you bring risk information to them. Uh, uh, if it's a fairly large organization that has multi jurisdictions presence, uh, how you bring back the DORA compliance requirements and those KPIs and KRIs massively depends on the organization's governance and their culture. It's a challenge, I think, very hard to break, because then you have to break the ongoing governance of it. But I'm pretty sure organizations are aware of it and will find a way to reduce and move forward in a way where they are being more compliant to the regulatory requirements on it. And do you want to comment any piece on the governance aspect?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of bits, and really, I guess the first thing is that, as Shreeji alluded to, regulators across Europe are providing or have provided different levels of support and advice and guidance. So, BaFin have been particularly good. The Maltese regulators again have been very, very good. So yeah, there's no kind of single location that encompasses all of the guidance that the regulators have provided, with the exception of Shreeji's head, I guess. But from a governance perspective, it's if you're not gonna measure it, you're not going to do it. It's a very simplistic approach that I think makes perfect sense. Making sure that those KPIs are then kind of being pushed up to management. It's not a one and done. It's an ongoing process, and that needs to be reflected in what the organization is doing and how it's reporting on progress. So yeah, very, very kind of pragmatic approach being kind of put forward by BaFin in this respect.
Super. On the next point on protection and prevention, I think that is where, in my experience of having conversation with clients, and again, it might be an anecdotal experience, but to a large enough extent, there is a requirement within the DORA where it says that organizations, financial entities, have to conduct weekly automated vulnerability assessments on assets linked to critical and important functions. So there is a very clear, detailed requirement around this, which is set up in the DORA regulation. And in my experience, we've seen clients focus on a lot more other stuff and miss out on this very prescriptive one line requirement. So I think it's a validation of sorts on that point, that BaFin also had a similar observation that they found the vulnerability and patch management program a bit inadequate, insufficient testing. I think there's an element of learning for every organizations, because how they draw up the digital operational resilience testing plan is based on risk, and how do you define that risk and what is the risk proportionate testing. It is a bit of challenge. I do see that, because traditionally organizations, what they've done is they've looked at, okay, I need to do an annual pen test, and they select a scope and then they do the pen test on. Now, what regulators are now expecting is, okay, do you know the scope of the pen test? Why are you selecting that scope of the pen test? Is it a risk-driven approach? Yes or no? So is it part of critical and important functions? What are the risks you are forcing that you want to mitigate with those pen tests? So those elements needs to come out adequately when you're defining the scope of the pen test. So the yearly, annual, one-time pen test exercise does tick the box, but it has to be contextualized, and that is where I think organizations will further improve on. Weak third-party controls, security controls. Uh, Again, it goes down to what is the scope of your testing, and this is something that me and Ed will cover a bit. And is included in the TPRM checklist is fundamentally what we see missing is organizations getting comfort with the third parties based on a software report or an ISO or a questionnaire, but they don't materially understand how the third party is accessing their environment. Is that secure enough? Is there a way to push them forward to be more secure? And that is what that point refers to. And again, do you have the ability to test that? Is from a security point of view. And I think there's a question on how important is that we assess how third parties access. Massively important. Uh, we were in a DORA conference, and I think was early December or late end of November, and two regulators from uh, two regulators were present there, and they were presenting the DORA findings. Uh, they indicated that out of the incidents that were reported, almost 60% of the incidents were from the third parties, so originated from the third parties, which is massive. So it is massively important to bring this in the testing regime. Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing an emergence of traditionally very, very technical areas such as pen testing into the business. So an expectation from both sides really, or a requirement from both sides. Firstly, for the business to actively engage in the testing that's taking place, and articulate what those key functions, those key systems are, as well as the technical folk that typically commission and then oversee the operation of testing, to provide input and visibility into the results. So yeah, absolutely. Pen testing is something that should be taking place. I guess the technical testing doesn't stop at pen testing, but it definitely starts.
The next one is on detection and response. Again, I'll be candid enough on this one. I think this one was something that we've not actively seen, and even in the two surveys that we looked at before, and in the conversations that we've had so far, that we thought that this could be a supervisory finding, but I think what it goes to show is the depth of assessments the BaFin is undertaking, where it is looking at what all your log sources. Are you getting everything in? Do you have like an alert to incident escalation process? Is that sufficient enough? Which is in a way truly remarkable, because that shows how detailed the supervisory assessments has been, and is something that organizations cannot lose sight of.
Yeah, I think when it comes to kind of scene coverage, this is we're in the weeds, right? But what is it what's the objective of having this kind of technology, this kind of service? It's to provide insight into operations and activities within your environment. So it makes complete sense really for regulators to go into this detail. But as Shreeji said, the fact that they are, it shows a level of kind of awareness and I guess technical capability and understanding that they expect other the regulated entities to also have. So getting a scene isn't a one and done. It needs to be updated. It needs to be kind of reviewed and aligned to business processes and new systems as they come on board, and old systems kind of offboarding and stuff. Getting a scene and then having a tick box for having a capability for detection is no longer enough. It really is a case of you've got it. So right now, how are you using it? What value is it actually bringing to the business? So yeah, really, really insightful in this particular instance.
The next one is on the business continuity and recovery plans not being tested or they have not been revised, and weak third-party integration, which makes sense. How our third parties involved in the recovery process, are they aware of it? It's kind of reflective of the first point on the weak third-party controls. I think the level of detail that the regulators are expecting, especially the BaFin in the first supervisory ones, again, you go to see the level of detail that they've shared this, which is in a way great guidance for organizations, because from an organization point of view, now you have a North Star to look at, and then follow that. And again, it speaks to the objective of DORA of being resilient, and third parties being, again, we saw how massively important they are when it just showed the workload of it. So it is in a way reflective of the BaFin supervisory finding.
Wonderful. So I was just keeping an eye on the question that's just kind of popped up. Shreeji, I'll leave you to have a look through that. The business continuity, absolutely. Again, it's integration with third parties, you're outsourcing stuff, but how confident are you in their ability to respond appropriately and kind of maintain business operations for you? So yeah, if you're going to, you can outsource the service, but you can't outsource the risk. And I think that just kind of reflects this statement here. If there's, I guess, a key takeaway from this particular point, it's getting close to third parties, understanding their capabilities, the controls, and their operations is absolutely fundamental.
And Lian, to answer your question, the requirement that DORA has is there is a requirement that there should be a weekly automated vulnerability assessments for all assets mapped to critical and important functions. That was the reference. Right. Hopefully that answers your question, Lian. And then the last one is on the risk management, and again, reflective of the survey results, basically mapping of critical functions, assets. I think the one that really struck me was weak independence of ICT control functions. It is something that is, again, reflective of the question first that Michael had, around what is the role of first line and the compliance function? How do you break that up? Which kind of speaks to this as to what should be the control functions roles be. Should they be executing any part of DORA compliance, or they should be the one just controlling it? It's a very fine balance to draw up. Again, it's challenging, especially when the teams are fairly small and lean, where especially for smaller organizations where there's you have a compliance function of one or two people, and you have a risk function one people, first line people of 3 or 4 people. It becomes really, really challenging to ensure independence of the roles and responsibilities. So there is no one-stop solution for this. I think the best way to look at it is that if there is a first line activity that for some reason controlling function has to undertake, you have to ensure that it's in the scope of the internal audit and it's reviewed. So just from a risk-based point of view. So it's very hard to change the entire operating of the organization when it comes to how the roles and responsibilities, but there could be ways in which you demonstrate that independence has been reviewed or assessed.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's a couple more questions that have come in since you were talking. There's the one about the block intelligence and the DORA frameworks coming under the scope of internal audit reviews. I think you've got to touch upon that, but absolutely, we're seeing kind of the internal audit kind of functions become more and more engaged. The question I would pose is audit internal audit functions are they could vary massively, whether it's in-house in-house or outsourced or co-sourced or whatever. But if you look at what BaFin are, for example, looking at, these are level of, I guess, technical details and kind of almost, it's technical examination that you would want to your own internal audit functions to be able to conduct as well. So yes, absolutely, internal audit reviews are starting to look at this. Areas.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, ideally, it should have been also in the scope of 25, 26.
Yes, ideally, you're an idealist. I'll give you that.
Yeah, as per the DORA requirements, it should have also been part of the testing. Again, there are very prescriptive requirements of what internal audit should be including in their audit plans. Again, they say that it is risk-based, but there are plenty of steers as to what goes into the internal audit plan from a DORA point of view. So yes.
Perfect, thank you. And there's a question at the bottom about DORA impacting the US institutions. I don't know if we want to touch upon that now or whether we
take it. Yeah, we come back to it. Right, we are at the point in time where we have questions around key challenges for 2026 DORA. This is something that we've kind of looked to paraphrase or summarize into 5 bullets. I'm pretty sure the list of challenges would run into if not hundreds, at least 20s or 30s lines on an Excel sheet from a DORA compliance point of view. But we had to pick our top 5, and these are top 5. If you disagree with it, let us know on the chat. If you strongly believe that there's a challenge that is not captured here, to let us know in the chat. But let us know your thoughts on how do you foresee this.
Well, I was going to say it seems to be largely static and consistent, but ROI, making sure that's up to date, definitely challenges. The contracts, the renegotiation, isn't that wonderful when you start renegotiating the contract with a third parties and everything up for grabs. The practicalities of kind of having to do this. We've got a bit of Leanne's having some challenges with accessing Slido. Hopefully one of the team can reach out to you directly. But I'd say if you could just whack in what you think is the most appropriate response into the chat, we can kind of pick that up from there. But yeah, lots of insights here about third parties, ROI. Yeah.
Yep. I think there's a massive on renegotiating contracts with ICT third parties that continues to be the challenge. I think fairly reflective of what we are hearing. Again, what we have seen happen is a lot of these regulators are organizing direct sessions with the ICT third parties, where they are sharing what their expectation is. That there are various industry bodies that are organizing in me and Ed. We've been part of at least 3 to 4 such sessions last year, where the goal was to bring all the financial entities, third parties, the regulators in a same room, lay down expectations that should ideally pave way, or at least make that conversation a bit less, for the lack of choice of words, stressful. But indeed, there is a bit of challenge, and regulators are appreciative of that, and they are trying to do the bit. And we see, okay, ROI still continues to be a challenge. Hopefully, we will touch up a bit on the ROI piece later during the session. Thank you ever so much for participating in the call. That's great to see that you actively contributing to it. I see there are more questions coming in. We'll take the questions now, Ed, at the end, just in the interest of the time. Yep. Brilliant. Reporting requirements, ROI. Sorry, we have one more poll. There are, if my memory serves right, after this, there would be maximum 2 polls. I hope I'm not proven wrong.
Yeah, so this one really is about the intricacies of the ROI. So these are some of the areas that we've seen organizations struggle. And I know, okay, we're in the weeds now, but we've seen that this is a very detail-orientated piece of kind of regulation. We know the regulators are kind of digging into this. The ROI structure is so strictly governed that it's just becoming, it just seems like it's a challenge for lots of different organizations. So yeah, this is really just to capture the challenges that organizations are having.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We see a lot of challenges on missing on invalid identifiers and file structure issues, which I think does make sense. And referential integrities issues, I think mostly linked. And that is purely down to how complicated the linking structures is and what sort of data requirements are. So you are what I'm wanting to say is that there are many financial entities who have similar challenges. So you're not the only one. And there is a way to reduce this. What we recommend is leverage technology and centralized ROI management. I think we've seen that we've been able to support clients of and again anecdotal evidence to report ROI within, if I'm not mistaken, I think we took less than 10 days for a client who came in very, very late near the reporting deadline of wanting to have the ROI submitted. And within 10 days, we were able to support client with the ROI submission that had 0 errors from the regulator and 0 comments in. So technology massively supports this because it helps automate the data quality controls, reduce all the referential errors or file structure integrity issues. It highlights where there is missing data fields and valid identifiers, so you are conscious whether you want to submit it with those errors or not. So when you are going in to the regulator, you're fairly comfortable of what will go with the regulator, and you could expect this. The other thing that we notice that because there was so much fatigue of year one ROI submission, a lot of ops then shifted to other stuff on DORA compliance, and ROI was put a bit on the back burner, which does make sense. And now in Jan, when the regulator has started to announce the reporting deadlines, they're picking that up. What we recommend client is to use it as a living register, have like a monthly touch point to ensure that the centralized ROI is continuously updated. And I think there were certain regulators that allowed for CSV or XLS submission last year. This time, I think most regulators are taking that flexibility away. They are wanting the XBRL CSV submissions. So that is something that we'll recommend to to the financial entities that are challenging. Again, there are multitude of technologies available for you to consider from. It's not just one top one. There are plenty of available in the market. We massively encourage you to leverage it because it will definitely ease the pain. Ed, do you have anything more to add?
No, I think that the one at the bottom is the key one for me. It's I guess it's a bit like doing a tax return. Everybody waits till the last moment, but the reality is you should be well in advance of the deadline and keeping a view on what's going on. So yeah, having it as a living register reduces that last minute panic and flurry of activity. The intention of the regulation really is to ensure better resilience across organizations and the financial services industry. The best way of doing that really is to, as I said, maintain it, make sure it's up to date, embed it into existing processes. And I think that really kind of reflects this.
All right. The second last poll. And while people submit their polls in and the poll becomes live, Leanne, there's a comment on renegotiating contracts as well as pushback where third parties push to be outside of critical clause. I think fundamentally you have to tell the third parties that criticality is based on critical functions. So if you are a third party supporting a critical function, unfortunately, they are part of it. So it's not whether the third party is critical or not. That's a secondary assessment that you need to do as part of the ROI submission. Fundamentally, the first requirement is whether the third party supports a critical and important function. And thank you, Sharon and Anna for putting in chat your thoughts around this. How are the TPs monitored and their financial institution behind on this? How are exit plan being tested? I'll take the second one. First one, I'm not really sure whether I've understood the question properly, but the exit plan testing, currently we have not seen any active exit plan testing. Even at the BC level, there are few questions that we always get as to how realistic the exit plans are. And what we suggest is, depending on the third parties, you make it as realistic as operationally possible, that exit plan. So we've not yet seen any specific testing on the exit plan yet.
I'd say the only area that you could say is representative of an exit plan would be like cloud failover testing that some organizations or some entities are doing. So yeah, testing kind of elements of the plan, of the resiliency, potentially under different banners. And I think the first one there about third parties being monitored and our financial institutions behind on this. If my understanding of the question is correct, the organizations are monitoring third parties in different ways. Firstly, it's we would always advocate that you take a risk-based approach. So not all third parties are equal, but there are different ways of kind of monitoring and managing that risk. Ongoing attack surface management tools becoming kind of increasingly more important for critical third parties. Dark web monitoring as well. So just getting early insights, early notifications of potential compromise. Questionnaires will continue to be very, very popular, but it's worth kind of remembering it's a kind of a point in time review as well as kind of the audits and all of that kind of stuff that could be triggered off the back of contractual changes. So yes, various ways of monitoring kind of third parties and other financial institutions behind on this. There are some organizations that are more compliant than others, I would say. Yeah, and there's no kind of broad sweeping statement that we can say that all organizations over X size and Y locality are compliant or not compliant. It really does, differ by the I guess the level of awareness at a board level, the engagement that the DORA program managers have got from organizations, as well as the risk appetite, because ultimately this is it's a big focus on risk. Sorry, Shreeji.
No, all great. And there's one more question, which is ROI needs to be submitted by the financial entities to the national regulators, be in XBRL, CSV. Yes, that is the expectation. There were certain regulators that allowed for XLS or CSV submissions last year, but this time we've seen almost all regulators asking the submission is the XBRL, CSV format. Right. So we look at the polls, I think, which is more than 50% already are on top of it, which is just amazing. There are 40 odd % entities that are planned. I think the reason for this specific question is because on 2 instances when we were in a conference with a regulator, there's an explicitly call out for this, that their supervised entities do not even know that there is an ICT framework review report that needs to be documented in a very fixed templatized form that has been given by the DORA requirements, and that is the reason for including this question. And it's really great that most of the attendees know about it and are already on top of it, as most of their DORA framework would be a year in place. Yeah, so that is really heartening. It does not matter whether you've planned it or is currently not under consideration. I think what matters is follow the template. So there's a specific template that has been given in the DORA, in the RTIS for ICT risk management. And what it also requires is what sort of sources you are considering for your review. So were there any incidents, or were there any digital operational resilience testing that was conducted, any vulnerability assessments, any sort of internal audit reviews that was undertaken. So all such sources of information should feed into the ICT risk management framework review report, and it needs to be formally documented. And it requires collaboration across multiple stakeholders within an organization. So in order to facilitate documenting that review report, you need multiple stakeholders in order for you to complete it. So it does take effort. It is a bit cumbersome. And yes, indeed, it has to be approved by the management body, not the board. But again, the idea is that for organizations that have not yet planned it, it is a significant effort. And if you're not already included in your planning, please do include it in the planning.
Thanks, Rachel. But one eye on the time. We've got 10 minutes left, 9 minutes. QR code at the bottom if anybody has any particular follow-ups that they want to have with us. I'll just flag that now. Wonderful. Should we click onto the next slide? Wonderful. So, looking forwards. So hopefully this is in alignment with kind of what the attendees of this call are experiencing. But yeah, significant impact on businesses, and I think potentially an initial kind of underestimation of the extent of the impact on businesses and the level of business engagement. It wasn't something that could be just kind of kicked over to the technical teams to ensure compliance with. Good news that boards are still engaged. There was a question earlier on about kind of enforcement actions, and I think until we start seeing those enforcement actions, there's a lack of clarity over what the scale and the scope are going to be. So there are always going to be board engagements where there's an unknown, particularly when the potential punitive costs associated with it. Regulators' engagement is still high, and I suspect it will kind of continue to kind of grow over time. ROI is a challenge, as we've heard. Again, the devil is very much in the detail, and it doesn't look like it's going away. We're not seeing a step back from this in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, indeed. And just to drop a bit of context of these specific 6 points, again, it's based on what we have heard from multiple regulators across multiple jurisdictions, or reading about what they have posted on the internet. So whatever their publications have been around DORA. So what we've tried to capture is synthesis of that in those 6 bullet points. I think one fundamental shift that we've heard across at least 3 regulators is, and this is a first-hand information directly coming out, I cannot name them, but what they don't want to be seen as an auditor in that entire ecosystem. So they believe that DORA compliance is a joint effort, and they are one part of the stakeholders whose role they don't want to be someone who's policing it or acting as an auditor of that. They want to be active participations in that entire DORA compliance journey. So they are, and their proactive approach is that they would set up various DORA programs, webinar forms for bringing in all the financial entities and the various stakeholders in the same room, having an open conversation on the challenges. I think that is one fundamental shift that we've seen, especially in the context of these regulations, where the regulators are taking a separate step. Yes, they have a supervisory role. They do understand that, but they want to be more partner than a policing authority. I think that is possibly how I would like to synthesize this. Is there is a growing voice within the regulatory environment, especially in the context of DORA, on this lines.
Perfect.
And sorry, just add. I want to emphasize again the focus on the third party risk management processes across few jurisdictions, where it has been explicitly called out that their supervisory priority for 2026 is going to be in the space of third party risk management. They would want to understand how third party risks are identified. So are there good practices in risk identification, and then corresponding risk management on it. So whether it's through contractual clauses or whether it's through other means, any of those from that point of view. So just want to kind of hop on those 2 points before we jump on to the next slide.
Cool. Thank you. We've got a poll up next really about your own level of DORA compliance. I think we've got 4 minutes left, and we've got some key takeaways off the back of this. So we'll keep this up just really, really briefly as a way of just kind of capturing the lay of the land, as it were, for compliance in this space.
So I'm just gonna get to a few questions. What are the practical alternatives that are acceptable when full subcontractor transparency is not achievable for critical ICT providers? Again, if it is not possible, it is not possible. You cannot, if you don't know, you don't know, and you cannot report. So I would take that position in. But if there are very specific case, Yasir, there is a QR code on the below to reach out to us. You'll be able to, we can discuss it in detail. Tom, is there a standard text? Indeed, there is not a standard text, but a template of what all data fees you need to capture. And it's in the RTS for ICT risk management on what should be included in the ICT risk management framework review report. Is there a free ROI validation tool? I'm not sure. We cannot recommend any tools, but MG, feel free to reach out and we can have a chat regarding the same. Which countries put emphasis on TPRM? So again, I'm gonna say Malta, Austria, Croatia are the ones where we've explicitly heard this requirement.
Cool. Thank you. I think we hop along to the next one. Okay. Very, very conscious of time. essentially, ROI continue to be challenging. This is something that everybody should be kind of looking at. It's not a one done. Make sure it's kind of a living, breathing, business focused kind of effort. Reassurance for the regulators is going to be absolutely fundamental, and make sure that you've got everything kind of lined up really. Third party risk management, and I think this feeds quite nicely into something that we've got coming up. So I know right at the beginning we said that you might be here to get the third party risk management checklist. So that's something that we are kind of giving away to kind of attendees as a hopefully useful artifact that that everyone can take away and either reflect on their own risk management practices or look to implement. So yeah, very, very keen for individuals to make the most use of that.
Super. And I think there's nothing new that summarizes this, because I think we've kind of echoed all of these in our previous text. What I would want to emphasize is the last bullet is the continuous third party monitoring. I think what we are increasingly seeing is shifting away or making more mature the risk identification process, where it is not based on purely a questionnaire, but essentially looking at other sources of risk, which could be external attack surface tools, threat intelligence, etc. So that is something that we keep on hearing. And I think we have one more minute before we thank you everyone for joining. There are a few questions that we've not been able to answer. I think the first one was on the role of compliance. Very quickly, if I may, so how we see this done at other clients, and again, depending on your organization and culture and what all size of teams you are, you're seeing compliance team push for getting the policy approval as per the governance. So they own it as a program where they are not actually doing it, but they are contributing to the policy approval process. They are actively pushing from a compliance point of view of the policy, but they take active steps in regulatory reporting. So anything that needs to go to the regulator, for example, ROI, they are leading the charge on ROI. We've seen certain organizations taken where the compliance team are also taking a active role in coordinating the TPRM program. But again, it varies from organization to organization. Hopefully that answers it. If not, Mikhail, the QR code is there. We've also shared our QR code in the previous slides, which will be shared with you. You can have a look at it and reach out to us, and we can have a further chat on the impact to US entities. Well, it depends whether it's financial or non-financial. For financial US entities, if they don't have any entity in EU, so there's no impact. But if there is an EU entity, that entity is in scope of DORA, given they qualify and not an MSME. And if you're a third party, it's indirectly impacting because you are supporting EU financial entities. The last one is are regulators taking it down the cost of DORA compliance? Well, they are appreciating the fact, but they are not taking away from the fact that this will actively give eventual benefits to financial entities at a whole. So indeed, they appreciate that there is a high cost for it, and hence the whole purpose of not or the objective of not being an policing entity, but more as a collaborator and a trusted partner in the ecosystems. Hopefully, I think we've covered each and every question that has been raised. If not, you have our coordinates. Please do reach out to us. I am happy to talk about it. Ed is happy to talk about it. We love talking about this. So appreciate your time in joining this, and conscious we are minute above the scheduled time. Thank you ever so much for joining this.